What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're going to be talking about my Week 14 running back rankings as we head into the final week of the regular season here for fantasy football in 2025. Hopefully, you guys have already clinched the playoffs. If not, let's make sure that we get you guys the right rankings this week to help you get over the edge so you can make the playoffs here this week as we head into the fantasy playoffs. So with that being said, I don't want to waste too much time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these running backs. All right, so as I always do, I have 7 tiers to get through the 36 running backs here in today's video, and I have labeled each tier how I would be viewing these players if you're plugging them into your lineups this week. So the guys at the top, those are going to be the elite RB1s here in Week 14 slate, and the guys at the bottom are more so flex plays in your lineups as we head into the weekend. So let's just start it off in tier 1, the elite RB1s. I have a total of 3 guys in this tier this week. It's going to be Jahmyr, Gibbs, Achane, and James Cook as my top 3 running backs. All of these players have matchups that are going to be very beneficial for them in fantasy. Jahmyr Gibbs plays the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, which is a good matchup because Dallas is ranked 28th against the running back position, giving up 2.5 fantasy points above the expectation. So Gibbs should be in store for a pretty solid matchup here this week. Achane also has a very good matchup on the road at the New York Giants. Right now, they're ranked 25th, which is a bottom 8 defense against the running back position, giving up 1.9 fantasy points above the expectation. So Etienne, who's been on a heater lately, should continue to keep stacking upon those performances here in Week 14. Now, James Cook is the main beneficiary of a positive matchup this weekend. He gets the dead last Cincinnati Bengals defense, who are currently giving up 9.2 fantasy points above the expectation, which is a massive number. So a very good matchup for James Cook. He should have the opportunity to run wild here this weekend, and that is why he's an elite RB1 for me in my rankings here this week. Let's go to tier 2. Tier 2 is going to be those high-end running back ones this week, and I do have a total of 5 guys. It's going to be Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, and Josh Jacobs here in this tier as well. 2 guys with matchups worth talking about. Jonathan Taylor has one of them. He's on the road at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are currently ranked 8th best against the running back position, giving up 2.6 fantasy points below the expectation. Jonathan Taylor, though, probably the front runner for fantasy football MVP, maybe co-runner with a guy in Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm not too worried about a negative matchup with him. I do think this is a start your studs and just live with the results type of matchup for him. So I'm not too worried about it. Heard a little bit of, some worries from some people in the Q&A this week where should we be worried about Jonathan Taylor's rest of season schedule? The answer for me is no. I'm going to keep playing Jonathan Taylor as a high-end running back one here this week. Chase Brown also is a player that I think has a matchup worth talking about. He's on the road at the Buffalo Bills. This is a good matchup. They're giving up 3.6 fantasy points above the expectation, which is 30th in the NFL. So Chase Brown should have a good matchup here this week as well. Let's go to tier 3. Tier 3 is going to be the low-end RB1. So I have 4 running backs to round out my top 12. It's going to be Breece Hall, Harvey, Kyren Williams, and Derrick Henry. There's only one matchup on here that I think is really worth talking about from a positive perspective. It's going to be Harvey on the road to the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a good matchup on paper. 2.2 fantasy points above the expectation is what the Raiders are giving up, which is 26th best in the NFL. So Harvey, still a top 10 running back in my rankings this week. Let's go to tier 4 because there wasn't really anybody else worth talking about in that tier, in my opinion, from a matchup perspective. Tier 4 is probably the largest group of running backs that I have in this entire tier list here today. It's going to be the safe RB2s. I have a total of 7 running backs. So going from running back 13 with Quinshon Judkins, Javonte Williams, Ashton, Jeanty, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, Saquon Barkley, and Kenneth Walker, all the way down to running back 19. That is the tier for me. The 2 guys at the very top are the only ones with matchup information to discuss. Quinshon Judkins plays the Tennessee Titans. This is a good matchup on paper. Right now, they're ranked 29th against the running back position, giving up 2.9 fantasy points above the expectation. Quinshon Judkins should have a very interesting game script in this one, where we get that Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. We know Buddy's in the pre-draft cycle, Buddy's in college. We get that head-to-head here this weekend. It should be an interesting one to watch. Javonte Williams is a player on the road at the Detroit Lions on Thursday Night Football that has a bad matchup in this tier. Right now, the Lions are ranked 2nd best against the running back position, giving up 4.9 fantasy points below the expectation. It's going to be tougher sledding for Javonte Williams. He has been treated like a bell cow by the Dallas Cowboys. Touchdowns are going to be important in this one. We'll see if he can get them, but still a safe running back 2 in my rankings. Let's go to tier 5. Tier 5 is the fringe running back 2. So to round out my top 24, I do got Devin Neal, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt, Jordan Mason, and David Montgomery. Lots of matchups matchups to talk about here. Two bad ones here at the top with DeAndre Swift and Kareem Hunt. Swift plays on the road at the Green Bay Packers. It is a bad matchup on paper, 3.2 fantasy points below the expectation, the 6th best in the NFL right now. It is going to be a little bit tougher, and he is splitting carries these days with Kyle Monangai, so it does limit the upside of both of those players, in my opinion. Kareem Hunt is another player who gets a tough matchup. He plays the Houston Texans, who've been one of the best defenses all year round from an all-around perspective. Right now, they're the 7th best against the running back position. This is Sunday Night Football, giving up 2.7 fantasy points below the expectation, so it should be tougher for Hunt. And you do have Pacheco, who I have no confidence in Pacheco, but he is still somebody who's going to take just a little bit away from Hunt as well, probably limiting a little bit of the upside. Let's go to the good matchups in this tier, though. Jordan Mason gets one of those good matchups where he plays against the Washington Commanders. Now, they are currently ranked 27th against the running back position, giving up 2.5 fantasy points above the expectation. Aaron Jones banged up this last week. Should we see some more Jordan Mason this week? Is Aaron Jones going to play? I think those are answers we will get throughout the week, but as of right now, I'm operating as if Jordan Mason is going to be at least the RB1, maybe the running back 1A this weekend, regardless if Aaron Jones can suit up. But I do like the matchup for Jordan Mason, a very, very fringe running back 2 in my rankings. Let's go to David Montgomery. He gets a good matchup on Thursday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. They are giving up 2.5 fantasy points above the expectation, which is 28th in the NFL, so should be a good matchup for Gibbs, should be a good matchup for Montgomery. Montgomery is certainly much, much less appealing than a guy like Gibbs because he's just not getting as much volume, and he is very touchdown dependent in this offense. Could he get it this weekend, though, against the Dallas Cowboys? I think he certainly could, so still a player who does just barely make my RB2s list. Let's go to my tier 6. Tier 6 is the low upside RB3s, and I have a total of 6 players in this tier. Starting at my running back 25, it's Kyle Monangai, Kenny Gainwell, Woody Marks, Zach Charbonnet, Kamani Vidal, and Bam Zonovan Knight. That is going to be the list of guys here. You can see why all of these guys are low upside RB3s, committees, and probably on the wrong side of committees or just bad offenses in general. You do have some matchups in this that I do want to talk about. Kyle Monangai, the same thing that I just said with Swift against the Green Bay Packers, who are a top 6 defense against the running back. It's going to apply to Monangai as well. So not a great matchup for Monangai, and like I said, in a committee. Woody Marks gets a bad matchup on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently ranked the 4th best against the running back position, giving up 4.5 fantasy points below the expectation. So Marks, despite being on the positive side of his committee there with Nick Chubb, probably not the best matchup to take advantage of either, and we know the offensive line play has been atrocious for these running backs to play behind. You also have Zonovan Knight, who does have a bad matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. I'm not expecting Trey Benson this week. You are probably going to get a mix of Michael Carter in here as well. Bam Knight is going to be the lead back, but it is against the Los Angeles Rams, who are the 3rd best against the running back position, giving up 4.7 fantasy points below the expectation. So a tough matchup here for Zonovan Knight. I don't feel very confident playing him in my lineups. Now let's go to tier 7 because there is certainly something interesting to talk about here in this tier. At 31, I got Michael Carter. I got Isaiah Pacheco, Tajay Spears, Chris Rodriguez. 35 is Blake Corum, and then you'll notice 36, I don't actually have a number 36. I just wanted to plug Omarion Hampton in here to talk about some things because it looks like he may have a real shot at playing here this week on Monday Night Football. So let's get the matchups out of the way here. Carter, the same matchup that I talked about with Zonovan Knight. We just mentioned it, so it is a bad matchup on paper. They're the 3rd best. Pacheco, 7th best defense against running backs against Houston. We talked about that one with Kareem Hunt. And Tajay Spears gets a very bad matchup against the Cleveland Browns on the road there in Cleveland, who are the 5th best defense against running backs right now, giving up 4 points below the expectation. PPR numbers are probably why he's sneaking into the top 36. But like I said, I wanted to get into this tier to talk about Omarion Hampton. He's a player that I have no information on at the time of this recording. I've been waiting, kind of doing it a little bit later this week just to see if I could get some minor information, something to come out about Omarion Hampton. I haven't heard it. This is a player where if he doesn't play this week, you see where I have Kamani Vidal, I'm probably still viewing Vidal there as an RB3. However, if Hampton were to get into the lineup this week and we were to talk about him as the starting running back for the Los Angeles Chargers, because on Monday Night Football, that's also kind of what makes this interesting, is you have to wait until Monday to figure out if he's playing. So you may have to play somebody earlier on Thursday or Sunday or whatever it may be, just because you don't know. Hopefully we get more clarity before we get into the Sunday games. But that being said, if Hampton plays, I know I just kind of rambled there for a second. If Hampton plays, I'm definitely going to be viewing him all the way up in the safe running back 2 tier. I don't know where I would plug him in amongst these guys. guys, I probably would lean more around this range, probably 15, 16 range, somewhere around Jeanty and Javonte. That's probably where I'm going to view Hampton. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. I know that's been a big question in the Q&A yesterday was, hey, where will Omarion Hampton be if he is playing in the lineup this week? Is Omarion playing this week? You know, all of these questions about Hampton. So hopefully that answers it. If he doesn't play, Vidal is a low upside RB3. If he does play, I'm viewing him as a safe running back to play this week. So hopefully that answers all of your questions about Omarion Hampton. It's a little bit of a tricky situation because, like I said, he's the Monday night game and we haven't had a lot of clarity yet so far, but hopefully some more to come here this week. All right, so there you have it. That is my top 36 running back rankings as we head into week 14 of the fantasy football season. As always, folks, if you found something today informative, entertaining, and or actionable, do me the favor and hit that like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed. Like I said, lots more information to come out this week about injuries and things like that. So you want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you don't miss any of the updates or any of the new information that we put out every single week to help you guys with your fantasy football teams. And that being said, also go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with those fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. And with all of that out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today. So I will see you on our next episode. But until then, peace out.